A formal letter addresses the emperor amidst elegant blue flowers. The black-haired man reads a letter regarding an old promise.
Eric recoils in shock while reading the letter's blunt contents.
Young Eric once claimed he'd rather eat carrots than marry. Well, that's one way to handle a wedding proposal.
Eric realizes he once vowed to join a monastery instead. He expresses disbelief at his own past statements written within the letter.
The man freezes while gripping the revealing letter tightly.
A jeweled silver scepter rests on a desk in the office. Eric crumples the letter in a fit of sudden agitation.
The man realizes Elisha, the future empress, has completely vanished. A white-haired girl in a blue cloak walks away. The white-haired girl disappears into the shimmering blue light. Crows fly over the ruins of a destroyed stone city. A dark boot steps firmly onto the cracked, dusty pavement. Two figures stand amidst the wreckage of a burning town. The black-haired man in a purple cloak addresses a child. The white-haired girl finches as the man approaches her. The man kneels and asks if she will follow him. The man offers a warm, reassuring smile to Luco.
The white-haired girl stares at the man in stunned silence.
The child places her small hand into the man's palm. The man picks up the girl to carry her away. They walk together through the ruins of the broken city. The man asks for her name, but she remains silent. He notes she may not know the language of this country. A system notification explains this is a border region under monstrous oppression.
The white-haired girl claims that her real name is Princess.
He assumes she was simply nicknamed that by her parents.
He identifies himself as the emperor while she insists on her name. They stand together amidst the glowing embers of the ruined city.
He carries her while they continue to bicker about their titles. The girl insists on her name while he maintains his royal rank. A sudden realization strikes the emperor as he looks away. He decides to grant the child a completely new name. The emperor bestows the name Elisha upon the young girl. Elisha blushes as she considers her new identity and name. Emperor Bernhardt returns to the capital with a lone survivor. A young Elisha sits alone inside the royal carriage. Noble guests gossip about Elisha being the emperor's secret child. Elisha grows up into a poised, white-haired young lady. Maids who slighted Elisha are immediately expelled from the palace. The rumors surrounding her status only continue to grow within the walls. The emperor grants Elisha her own private residence and care. Servants bow as Elisha walks through the palace gardens. Elisha looks up as a boy watches her from above. A dark-haired boy calls out to her from a balcony. The scene shifts to a bright, clear blue sky. The dark-haired boy complains that the girl is being annoying. He demands she stop hanging around him despite her silence. Elisha firmly orders the prince to return to his room. She addresses him as Your Highness with a mocking smile. The prince insults her looks while she reacts in shock. He denies having any reason to hang around her at all. He remains indignant after her sharp retort about his attitude. The boy continues his petty argument about her blunt speech. He claims her mouth should be used for better things than insults. Eric and Elisha bicker despite the tutor's lessons on respect. The prince ignores the instructions to maintain proper royal honorifics. Elisha informs the prince that she does not respect him. Young Eric reacts with a loud and frustrated outburst. Eric values respect while Elisha speaks of life's harsh uncertainty. Elisha promises to show respect only when Eric becomes emperor. Eric seethes with anger while Elisha indifferently reads her book. Eric mentions his nanny's comment regarding Elisha's mature speech. Eric is annoyed when Elisha compares his speech to a child. Eric insults Elisha's status and lack of a proper name. A small hand turns the page of a well-read book. Elisha's blue eye reflects her deep, focused internal thoughts. Elisha admits she never expected to be treated like royalty. Elisha explains that her presence is entirely motivated by survival. Narration states that all basic needs stem from surviving. Young Eric feels small amidst a group of judgmental nobles. Elisha remains focused on her studies despite the surrounding drama. Eric is visibly stunned by Elisha's cold and pragmatic worldview. Eric questions why Elisha is reading a baffling psychology book. Both children look up as a familiar voice calls out. The emperor approaches the children with a warm, friendly greeting. The emperor assumes the two children are becoming close friends. Elisha bluntly informs the emperor that they are not friends. The emperor smiles warmly at the children's honest and blunt interaction. Elisha points out that the prince clearly dislikes her presence. Eric is horrified by Elisha's blunt honesty toward his father. A gloved hand rhythmically taps against the leg in deep thought. The emperor offers a playful and knowing smile to the children. The emperor suddenly suggests that the children should get married. The children are struck with absolute horror at the emperor's suggestion. Eric reacts with extreme disbelief to the idea of marriage. Lush green leaves shimmer under the bright afternoon sun. A small purple witch waves cheerfully as a friendly transition. White palace spires stand tall under a clear, bright sky. Eric vows with absolute certainty that he will never marry. Eric finds the concept of marriage to Elisha completely illogical. Eric demands Elisha say something and agree with his refusal. A hand slams a pen onto a desk in frustration. Elisha dismisses the emperor's marriage suggestion as a simple joke. Thoughts mock Eric for taking a clear lie so seriously. Eric points and shouts, denying that he was fooled. Eric reminds Elisha that his father always keeps his promises. Elisha tells Eric to take action if he's worried. A dark shoe taps against the floor during a pause. Elisha asks Eric if he is angry about her Elisha.
Eric blushes and stammers, caught off guard by her directness.
Eric claims he is just used to her constant insults. Elisha looks thoughtful as she reflects on their strange dynamic. Elisha directly asks the prince if he truly hates her. Elisha recounts all the reasons Eric says he dislikes her. Shouted thoughts emphasize a fierce refusal to ever consider marriage. Elisha accepts the prince's rejection with a calm stoic "know-it." The white-haired girl gazes ahead, noting that marriage is a matter of indifference to her. The dark-haired boy listens as she explains she neither likes nor dislikes him. Sunlight floods the room as she ponders the possibility of their eventual marriage. An open book rests on the table, filled with illegible handwritten notes. A close-up of the boy's eye reveals his utter shock at her statement. The dark-haired boy demands to know the meaning behind her blunt words. He leans over the balcony railing to look down at the white-haired girl. The boy stands frozen in surprise while watching her from his elevated position. The girl offers a small, mysterious smile as she looks away from him. Elisha stands amidst blooming flowers, smiling brightly as the scene captures her childhood. The emperor sits in his office, realizing she actually left to fulfill a childhood promise. A blond man enters the palace, questioning why he was summoned so early. Dante Renard, the magic knight captain, reacts with shock to news of Elisha's disappearance. Dante suggests that she might simply be overwhelmed by the upcoming wedding. The emperor hands Dante a letter, noting Elisha has never ventured outside alone before. He admits his past rejections of her were merely the babblings of an immature boy. Dante reads the letter in disbelief, amazed she left to keep such a promise. Dante points out his past consistency in those remarks, but the emperor dismisses it. The man places his hand on the desk, ending the trivial argument about his past. Bernhardt emphasizes that the truly urgent matter is the disappearance of the Archmage. A vision of the royals highlights the instability of the empire following the recent succession. The emperor worries that her absence will damage their image and invite enemy schemes. He orders Dante to silence the palace staff and claim Elisha is on vacation. Bernhardt vows to find her regardless of whether she is still within the borders. The scene shifts to a memory of Elisha walking away with her magical staff. Dante watches the emperor closely, sensing a deeper shift in the man's resolve. The captain protests being sent on the search, claiming he is too busy. The emperor mockingly reminds him of his childhood love for playing treasure hunts. Bernhardt reveals a newly created communication stone to the surprised knight captain. The emperor tells Dante to consider this mission his own personal vacation. He orders Dante to scour the continent and not return until Elisha is found. Dante walks away dejectedly, lamenting that his bad premonitions are always correct. A jeweled staff sits abandoned on a desk, a sign of Elisha's sudden departure. Bernhardt stands alone, hoping Elisha struggles enough to regret leaving his side. The emperor clenches his fist tightly while whispering Elisha's name in the empty room. The scene shifts to the bustling streets of a town with tall, narrow houses. Elisha sits quietly inside an inn, focused on eating a simple ear. The white-haired girl continues to eat peacefully, seemingly enjoying her newfound freedom. The innkeeper approaches the table to ask if the food is to her satisfaction. Elisha identifies the man as Jonathan, the owner who initially tried to evict her. Jonathan dotes on her, promising new bedding and high-quality lamb steak. She recalls how showing him a single valuable artifact completely changed his hostile attitude. The innkeeper looks at her expectantly, waiting for her next request. Elisha asks if there is a place to live within Cardion, and Jonathan offers recommendations. The girl thinks carefully about the specific requirements for her new residence. She requests a quiet area where she can remain unrecognized and away from the capital. Jonathan pauses to consider her request, looking thoughtful as he rubs his chin. Elisha adds that she must still be able to receive news from the palace. The innkeeper stares at her with a suspicious and confused expression. Jonathan asks if she had a falling out with the imperial family, prompting her silence. Elisha looks down thoughtfully while sitting alone inside the quiet inn. Jonathan panics, realizing the emperor dislikes him and wishing for ignorance. The innkeeper feels compelled to proceed because he already accepted payment. Elisha watches Jonathan as he continues to fret over his predicament. Jonathan slams the table, telling his guest to rest assured. He dramatically vows to hide her for her entire say. He enjoys the excitement while Elisha simply agrees with the sentiment. A gloved hand holds a golden imperial seal featuring a lion. Dante Renard sighs in frustration while searching through the dark room. Dante expresses shock that Elisha sold a royal seal at auction. A solitary question ponders where the young woman has disappeared to. A purple-haired chibi witch smiles and waves a friendly greeting. Heavy rain falls over the rooftops of the town at night. A broom sweeps across the floor as someone hums a tune. Jonathan sweeps while happily thinking he hit a jackpot with Elisha. He finds her behavior suspicious but knows she lacks wanted posters. He wonders if his quiet guest is still asleep behind her door. Jonathan strikes a proud pose while holding his broom in the tavern. He decides he would hide her even if she were a criminal. Jonathan is startled when Elisha suddenly appears right behind him. He offers her breakfast stew while recovering from the sudden scare. Elisha stands silently amidst blue hydrangeas as the rain continues outside. The sound of the heavy downpour echoes through the interior rooms. Jonathan asks if she is worried about the roof leaking. He boasts about his construction while Elisha asks about lightning strikes. He assures her it's fine unless there is a direct hit. Jonathan wonders if he offended her before asking about the rain. Elisha explains that while rain is fine, she hates lightning. Jonathan suggests that even a cold lady has childhood fears. Elisha clarifies it's not a childhood fear, but a shudder-inducing hatred. She recalls when Bernhardt found her, though some memories remain lost. She notes she could endure storms when Eric was beside her. Elisha grips her sleeve tightly while reflecting on her current isolation. In a memory, young Elisha tells the prince she hates lightning. Young Eric stares at her in shock as she enters his room. He questions her intrusion while she warns that a storm is coming. Eric protests as Elisha begins to climb onto his royal bed. She explains that the emperor gave her permission to visit him. Elisha promises to eat his carrots tomorrow in exchange for staying. Eric blushes deeply and reluctantly agrees to let her stay. He insists this is a one-time allowance, while Elisha reacts coldly. Rain lashes against the large windows of the dark imperial palace. The two children sit together in silence on the large bed. Young Elisha looks up at the prince as the storm rages. Eric asks why she's here despite her previous claims of hatred. He laments his own expectations while Elisha admits her fear. Eric recoils in shock, questioning what he had been expecting from her. Elisha asks why he is acting up since it is nighttime. The young girl stares blankly while stating her hatred for the storm. A hand reaches out as the memory of the storm continues. Young Elisha lunges toward the prince as magical energy flares. Young Eric watches the white-haired girl with a stunned expression. Elisha stops her advance, looking down at her glowing hands. A close-up highlights the white-haired girl's focused and serious gaze. A sharp ethereal energy begins to manifest in the room. A dagger strikes the floor as Eric recoils in shock. Eric recalls the sudden chaos and the loss of his guards. Elisha reassures the prince that everything will be just fine. Elisha declares she won't let him die, activating massive magic. The young girl glows brilliantly while channeling her magical power. A burst of light signals the completion of her defensive skull. Magic energy swirls around the children as the scene concludes. A close-up of a closed eye suggests a peaceful moment. Bernhardt returns to the palace immediately following the violent incident. The emperor orders the execution of all nobles involved. Elisha's reputation shifts drastically as she becomes a powerful archmage. The prince admits his constant expressions of hatred toward her. Eric questions her lack of animosity while Elisha acknowledges his feelings. Elisha notes it would be greedy to expect his affection. The girl explains she has no specific reason to hate him. Elisha closes her book, ending their quiet conversation. She requests that the prince stay with her during stores. Eric blushes deeply as the girl offers him a smile. Heavy rain continues to fall over the dark palace rooftops. Dante Renard investigates leads regarding an artifact sold at auction. The Knight Captain examines a gold pocket watch for magical signatures. Dante remains certain the Master Grid artifact belongs to the Archmage. He notes the anonymous source of the valuable blue jab. Dante complains about Elisha's difficult personality while walking through rain. The captain decides to postpone his search to enjoy dinner. Dante enters the tavern, hoping to find high-quality palace food. The knight stands frozen upon seeing Elisha sitting at a table. The white-haired girl looks up, stunned to see the captain. Dante whispers Elisha's name in disbelief as she stares back. A purple-haired chibi witch appears against a dark, magical background. Fernandi Cullen is expelled from the palace for spreading rumors. The disgraced attendant cringes in fear after being caught. Sunlight illuminates the grand architecture and gardens of the palace. Blue flower petals drift across the meticulously maintained grounds. Young Eric gazes out from the balcony in quiet contemplation. The prince reflects on Elisha's unusual nature despite the gossip. Elisha stands silently among white flowers in the palace garden. The white-haired girl looks up, noticing the boy watching. Maids gossip nearby as Elisha realizes she has been spotted. Eric blushes while privately marveling at the girl's ethereal beauty. The prince concludes that the rumors calling her a monster were wrong. The scene shifts back to the rainy streets of town. Dante confronts Elisha at her table, questioning her presence. Elisha prepares a spell while questioning the Knight Captain's presence. A massive surge of blue lightning erupts, startling the tavern. Debris falls from the ceiling while a sinister laugh echoes from above. Dante holds a glowing crystal, telling Elisha how much he missed her. Elisha activates a massive magic circle, stating he should know her reasons. She notes the sound-blocking spell prevents the terrified innkeeper from eavesdropping. Dante acknowledges her statement while the white-haired girl stares him down. The blonde Knight Captain smirks as magical flames begin to manifest. A voice announces that someone else is also eager to see her. Streaks of magical fire rain down on the Archmage inside the tavern. Dante hopes to momentarily restrain Elisha since he cannot defeat her. The captain plans to use the distraction to contact Eric immediately. Dante gleefully imagines his upcoming paid vacation while clutching the Arphite. Elisha lunges forward with incredible speed, catching the Knight Captain off guard. The girl's hand snaps shut around the captain's wrist, sparking blue energy. Dante gasps in confusion as his attempt to restrain her fails. Elisha looks at him coldly, noting that he isn't the only one. She shatters the magical crystal, declaring that she also possesses magic. Dante screams in despair as his precious communication stone is destroyed. He laments the artifact's cost while Elisha blames its inherent fragility. Dante realizes he cannot seek help and fears Elisha will escape. A single thought wonders if persuasion is now his only available option. Elisha reminds the captain of something she believes he already understands. The girl states that Eric has always wanted her to leave him. Dante argues she is mistaken, claiming Eric would never send her away. Elisha stops in her tracks, looking genuinely shocked by the captain's claim. She asks for confirmation that Eric specifically ordered Dante to find her. Elisha questions the motive behind Eric's search as Dante looks away awkwardly. Dante admits he was given no explanation beyond the order to search. He suggests her disappearance is a national loss due to her status. A gathering of leaders convenes for the official Allied Nations Conference. Elisha stands tall in white robes, wielding her staff and channeling magic. The Emperor plans to use the event for significant political leverage. Elisha reflects that she would usually be the one presenting magic. The white-haired girl looks down with a melancholic and distant expression. She declares she won't return if the conference is the only reason.
Elisha tells Dante to attend in her place despite his protests.
She asserts that Eric is unfit to rule if her absence halts everything. A memory shows hands holding a large bouquet of white daisies.
Young Bernhardt smiles while holding young Elisha in a flower-filled garden.
The Archmage turns to leave as Dante desperately calls for her to wait. Dante shouts that there is another reason for the search beyond politics. The captain tries to regain her attention with a strained, cheerful expression. He recalls how Eric claimed to hate her despite his true actions. Dante internally curses the Emperor's difficult and perpetually moody personality. The blonde knight captain introduces himself formally as Dante Renard. Elisha clarifies that her decisions aren't based on an old childhood promise. She walks through the tavern as the Emperor's name is whispered. Bernhardt has notably avoided entering into any imperial marriage for years. Heavy rain falls on the dark, imposing spires of the imperial palace.
Elisha and Eric stand together in the courtyard, her dress stained blood red.
Eric addresses the Archmage as they both stand drenched in the downpour. Eric tells Elisha she never belonged in the imperial palace. Heavy rain falls in silence as the memory's atmosphere lingers. A magical transition occurs as the current rainy scene shifts. Elisha reminds Dante of his long service at the imperial palace. Dante confirms his knowledge of the late Emperor's marriage plans. Elisha questions if Dante ever found the engagement situation strange. The Archmage recalls how the late Emperor chose her long ago. She questions why she still isn't the nation's crown princess. Dante reacts with visible shock and confusion to her blunt question. Dante reflects on Bernhardt's stubbornness and history of forcing decisions. The knight captain considers why the late Emperor eventually backed down. Dante realizes Elisha's passive nature means she wouldn't have refused. Dante acknowledges that Eric was the one who consistently refused marriage. Young Eric shouts his dislike for the white-haired girl during childhood. The young prince looks away, rejecting any connection to her. Elisha remembers Eric's excuse that she wasn't ready after their ceremony. Dante concludes she left so Eric could avoid the forced marriage. The knight confirms that Eric is now actively searching for her. Elisha looks down, processing the news of the Emperor's search. Dante internally rants about how messed up the entire situation is. He laments his difficult mission despite his personal feelings about Eric. Dante reaches out, setting aside his pride to address the girl. The knight captain insists that Eric wants her to return immediately. Elisha rejects the idea that Eric's feelings for her have changed. She fears immediate expulsion from the palace if she were to return. Dante tries to convince her to stop worrying and come back. The knight captain reacts with a sudden tense realization. A grim memory depicts the aftermath of a violent monster attack. Bernhardt's death is recalled, marking the end of the previous reign. Elisha stands in silence, haunted by the memory of the loss. Eric stands in the rain, looking somber and regretful. Elisha repeats the Emperor's harsh claim about her presence at court. Dante internally curses Eric's hypocrisy for ordering her search now. Elisha tells Dante to give up on his mission of retrieval. Dante argues that the Empire still desperately needs her magical power. Elisha places a hand on his shoulder, calling him the Empire's mage. The girl gazes at him while dismissing her own importance. Dante's ego swells as he accepts the compliment from the Archmage. Elisha asks him to handle her share of the work too. Dante grabs her sleeve, shocked by her attempt to dump responsibilities. The captain realizes that taking her position means endless paperwork. Dante collapses in horror at the prospect of never clocking out. He screams in despair at the thought of holding two positions. Elisha uses his greed to tease him about the job's pay. She suggests he personally ask Eric to break off the engagement. Elisha encourages him to slap Eric and declare her freedom. The girl jokingly plans to blame Dante if she gets imprisoned. Elisha walks away while promising to keep sending him plenty of work. The innkeeper Jonathan appears in the distance looking very distressed. Elisha realizes her sound-blocking magic prevented her from hearing him call. The trembling innkeeper points toward the door, sweating in pure terror. A massive clawed monster paw steps into the tavern doorway. The white-haired girl watches in silence as a monster reveals itself. Dante stands shocked as a giant paw crushes the wooden floor. Elisha stares ahead grimly as dark magical smoke fills the room. A dark memory surfaces of a knight facing overwhelming black shadows. A blood-stained sword lies abandoned, haunting the white-haired girl's thoughts. Dante shouts Elisha's name as a massive shadow looms over them. Elisha stands before a giant wolf-like creature, confirming her worst fears. A glowing red eye pulses with energy from within the darkness. The girl identifies the massive beast as a creature known as Hyde. She notes it is the same monster from the Shilron Plains. A purple-haired chibi witch appears during a brief narrative interlude. The scene pauses for a moment of quiet magical reflection. Swirling blue energy transitions the perspective back to the current crisis.
The gargantuan wolf monster towers over the tavern's roof and courtyard.
Elisha and Dante stand on the steep roof facing the beast.
The girl asks the captain if we brought the monster here. Dante frantically denies it, arguing that humans cannot control such monsters. The blonde knight looks down with a serious and weary expression.
Elisha finds a lack of screaming from the townspeople very suspicious.
The two remain perched on the roof as the monster looms nearby. She explains that hides are invisible to those with low mana.
Elisha suspects a cloaking spell and questions Dante's disbelief in summoning.
She clarifies that a monster summoning formula is theoretically possible to invent. The girl warns that the monster is about to make its move.
Elisha asks Dante Renard if he can see the phenomenon ahead.
Dante confirms that he sees the disgusting black monster perfectly clearly. The white-haired girl realizes that Dante cannot actually see the truth. A mysterious cloaked figure appears within a swirling purple magical void. The dark-haired man smirks maliciously as Elisha reacts with visible shock. A sudden blinding flash of light erupts before the white-haired girl. Elisha lunges forward, activating a powerful blue magic seal in midair. Her hand makes contact with the air, sparking intense magical energy. A massive beam of blue mana strikes the giant black wolf. Dante screams in pure horror as the sudden attack causes chaos. The captain scolds her for attacking the beast without any warning. Elisha expresses deep frustration at missing her target despite the opening. The monster growls and begins to move, provoked by the girl's strike. A pillar of blue lightning descends, nearly striking the panicked night captain. Elisha raises her hand, signaling for a moment of absolute stillness. The girl's hand remains steady as the magical energy begins dissipating. The giant wolf monster lies defeated amidst the tavern's shattered ruins. Elisha stands alone among blue flowers, looking distant and deeply pensive. The sky clears as a transition marks the end of the battle. Jonathan the innkeeper screams in comedic despair over his lost livelihood. The innkeeper laments his destroyed building while Dante offers a weak apology. A mysterious dark figure watches the group from the distant shadows. Elisha wonders why anyone would deliberately place such a monster there. The girl looks on with an annoyed expression at the continuing noise. Jonathan cries over his destroyed livelihood as Elisha looks on. The innkeeper is overwhelmed by tears following the tavern's destruction. Jonathan laments losing the inn he built using his father's inheritance. The white-haired girl raises her hand to begin a powerful spell. Glowing blue energy swirls as the shattered tavern magically reforms itself. The innkeeper gasps in disbelief while the blonde knight watches stunned. Jonathan celebrates his restored inn while Dante questions the incredible magic. The knight captain admits he has never seen such magic before. Dante aggressively questions the girl about the source of her power. Elisha reflects on her casting talent versus Eric's genius for formulas. She notes that Eric's secret formulas were shared only with confidants. Dante realizes the magic is a new secret creation of Eric's. The captain fumes because he wasn't informed about this new magic. Elisha remains silent as Dante stands behind her looking exhausted. The Archmage dismisses the argument to focus on her next move.
The girl pulls up her hood, preparing to leave the area.
Elisha tells Dante to take credit for killing the monster hide. Dante pleads for her to return to the palace, refusing retirement. She insists on granting Eric's wish for her to stay away. Dante worries about future monster attacks if the Archmage is gone. A close-up shows the Knight Captain's gloved hand reaching out tentatively. The pair considers why the monster appeared exactly when they met. Dante suggests the monster was summoned by an enemy of the Empire. A dark premonition shows the Imperial Palace is the next target. Dante insists his warnings aren't just an attempt to guilt her. The timing of the monster's appearance is identified as extremely suspicious. The captain argues the palace cannot be defended without her power. Elisha acknowledges that Dante lacks the power to stop large-scale threats. She considers the identity of the person who summoned the monster. The girl stands alone, weighed down by the potential for disaster. A vision of a bloody crown represents another catastrophic disaster occurring. Elisha fears that Eric might be the next victim of the summoner. The girl agrees to return, much to Dante's immense joy and relief. Elisha stops the celebration to state her conditions for coming back. The white-haired girl looks away, hiding her expression beneath her hood. Dante listens intently as the Archmage addresses him by his full name. A magical transition occurs as the scene shifts to a new location. Sparks of blue energy dance around a hand inside a dark room. A blinding flash illuminates a massive ornate archive as the pair arrives. Dante smiles warmly while welcoming Elisha to his family's private archive. The scene reveals the vast scale of the Renard family's secret records. Elisha questions why they came here while Dante admits his limitations. The captain explains he benefited from his close friendship with Eric. The Archmage reacts with visible shock to a document Dante presents. 2 magical pens are displayed symbolizing a binding agreement or contract. Dante offers a deal using an item that represents significant political leverage. Elisha realizes the item is one of Eric's unreleased oath contract prototypes. Dante recalls Eric asking him to test the prototype for side effects. The Knight Captain confidently guarantees the prototype's effectiveness despite never testing it. Dante smirks, knowing he has successfully trapped her into an agreement. The blonde man feels suspicious and considers a safeguard for their deal. Dante Renard decides to prioritize the penalty for breaking the contract. The blue-haired girl suggests that the penalty should be his life. Dante Renard protests the harsh penalty while Elisha justifies its inclusion. The blonde man reluctantly agrees to the terms despite his regrets. Elisha asks the blonde man to state his own specific demand. Dante Renard requires silence regarding her location and reports on the palace. As Dante Renard writes his terms, the blue-haired girl prepares hers. Elisha demands the blonde knight handle all of her document-related duties. Dante Renard feels he is losing the deal despite the simple tasks. The girl offers to deliver the documents secretly to avoid the palace.
Elisha instructs the blonde man to review and confirm the finalized details.
Dante Renard flinches as the blue-haired girl addresses him formally. The blue-haired girl warns Dante Renard against attempting any deceptive tricks. Elisha points at the contract and orders a revision to the clause. The girl forbids anyone related to Eric from entering her residence. Dante Renard panics as he realizes his secret plan has been ruined.
The blonde man attempts to cancel the entire oath contract immediately.
Elisha stops the blonde man and reminds him of his new workload. Dante Renard collapses in defeat while the blue-haired girl hums quietly. A magical circle activates over the document to bind their agreement. The blue-haired girl smiles triumphantly as the contract is successfully finalized. Elisha looks forward to their cooperation while Dante Renard appears completely exhausted. A grand white tower rises majestically under a bright, clear sky.
Eric mentions he gave Dante Renard leave to find the girl.
The emperor notes that a monster appeared instead of the person sought. Eric describes being startled by the sudden appearance of the black creature.
The emperor questions if Dante Renard truly captured the creature alone.
Eric observes that Dante Renard would usually prioritize securing a vacation. A hand rests on a desk as the formal confirmation concludes. Eric orders Dante Renard to search for Elisha for a longer period.
Dante Renard flinches upon receiving the emperor's new search instructions. The blonde man argues that leaving his post now would be dangerous.
Dante Renard suggests delaying the search until after the upcoming Nations Conference. The blonde man reacts to a subtle shift in the room's atmosphere. Eric covers his face while admitting he got slightly carried away. The emperor agrees to suspend the search and dismisses the blonde knight.
Dante Renard remains silent while appearing deeply thoughtful about his next move.
Dante Renard addresses Eric by his name as he prepares to speak. The blonde man decides to use physical gestures to convey something important. Dante Renard gestures toward himself as he begins his silent performance.
Chibi Dante Renard signals to Eric that Elisha is his secret fiancé.
The blonde man continues his charades, indicating she is at his house. Dante Renard demands rest and a reward for keeping the girl safe. The blonde man hopes his physical performance was understood by the emperor. Eric stares at Dante Renard with a look of extreme confusion. Stars twinkle in the night sky as the scene transition begins. Eric stands alone by the window looking out at the darkened palace. The emperor recalls a report mentioning another person with Dante Renard. Eric remembers the specific detail that the mysterious second person was a woman. Eric reflects on his initial hope that the mysterious robed figure was Elisha.
The emperor admits that he soon found himself hoping it was actually someone else.
He worries that seeing the monster would remind Elisha of her past trauma. Eric wonders about Elisha's true feelings while softly whispering her name in the dark. A purple-haired chibi witch appears during a brief narrative interlude. A promotional banner features a mysterious woman's face in a purple glow. The scene shifts to the Imperial Palace as a new day begins. Eric and Dante discuss the lack of new monster sightings in the capital. The blonde knight mentions that the Imperial scholars are currently investigating the matter. Dante looks at the emperor with an expression of growing concern. Eric becomes visibly annoyed as the conversation takes a frustrating turn. The emperor slams the table in a sudden outburst, startling the knight. Eric glares at the knight captain while addressing him by his full name. He scolds Dante for being distracted despite their long-standing friendship. Dante agrees that they should focus their attention on the upcoming Alliance Conference. The emperor asks which foreign delegations have already arrived at the palace. Eric is surprised to learn that Nox has sent their second princess as a representative. Narrative text explains the royal custom regarding heirs attending political conferences. Dante looks completely overwhelmed by the potential political implications of the visit. A sudden flash of insight strikes the blonde knight captain. Dante concludes that the foreign kingdom's true intentions are now painfully obvious. He notes that everyone is acting boldly despite the emperor's current engagement status. The knight questions why Nox would go to such lengths for this meeting. Dante explains that the missing archmage makes the empire appear vulnerable to outsiders. He states that the public is simply waiting for the engagement to be cancelled. Eric remains silent, looking away as the weight of the situation sinks in. The emperor asks Dante for his honest opinion on what he should do. Dante suggests that an annulment would allow Elisha to finally return to the palace. He argues that it would be better to announce the split sooner rather than later. Dante points out that Eric never liked Elisha, which the emperor starts to deny. Eric looks away with a pained and conflicted expression on his face. The emperor decides to drop the subject, feeling there is no point in explaining. Eric calls Dante an idiot in his thoughts for being so incredibly dense. The dark-haired emperor gazes out in silence, lost in his own complicated thoughts. Eric thinks about how Elisha is the only one whose opinion truly matters. A vision shows Eric and Elisha together as he ponders their future. The white-haired girl appears amidst white flowers, looking distant and beautiful. Eric wonders where Elisha is and what she is doing at this moment. The scene shifts to a grand archive as a magical portal opens. A massive stack of books begins to wobble precariously in the air. Dante struggles to keep his balance while carrying the heavy load of books. The blonde knight loses his footing and crashes loudly to the floor. Elisha clicks her tongue in disapproval at the knight captain's clumsy arrival. The white-haired girl stands in the library dressed in an elegant dark gown. A memory reveals Elisha lost her previous housing following the tavern's destruction. Dante teases Elisha about the relationship between a mage's appearance and their power. Elisha works on Dante's paperwork as part of their secret agreement. Dante complains about the overwhelming amount of work waiting for him. The blonde knight hands a thick, ornate book over to the white-haired girl. Elisha stares at the book with a look of pure, unbridled annoyance. Elisha admits she dislikes waiting for Dante to finish work to read books, while the knight complains about her lack of gratitude. The blonde knight sighs as he recalls being scolded by Eric during their previous imperial meeting. Elisha asks the knight captain for an update on today's discussions and if any progress was made. Dante is confused when the white-haired girl abruptly announces that her side has decided to drop the matter. Elisha reminds him of the suspicious black-haired man with red eyes, though Dante insists the point is moot. Dante explains that the upcoming Alliance Conference has exhausted their manpower, making a proper investigation currently impossible. Elisha is stunned to learn that the investigation team they plan to lead cannot be formed. The girl reflects on how her absence has left Dante completely tied down by his conference duties. Elisha looks downward, her expression clouded with a sense of lingering hesitation and concern. After considering the books Dante provided, Elisha mutters that she must personally investigate the truth behind the incident. Dante interrupts her thoughts to mention that there is actually some good news related to the situation. The blonde knight explains that the kingdom of Nox has already begun making political moves behind the scenes. Elisha is visibly shocked to learn that Nox sent their second princess to lead the foreign delegation. Dante notes that Eric will suffer most from the upcoming chaos and might soon announce their official annulment. The knight captain tells Elisha to hold on until the annulment allows her to return to the palace. Elisha looks deeply distressed as she suddenly announces her departure from the Grand Archive. The white-haired girl addressed Dante by his family name as she activates a blue teleportation spell. The archmage stands alone as the magical portal's glow fades. A focused close-up captures the girl's somber and determined expression. Elisha walks away, resolutely deciding that the palace's marriage politics are no longer her concern. The girl focuses on a complex magical formula, deciding to push aside her worries for now. Glowing blue energy swirls around Elisha as she prepares to focus her power on a different task. A purple-haired chibi witch appears during a brief narrative interlude between scenes. The dark-haired emperor walks alone through a grand palace hallway. Bright sunlight illuminates the peaceful and silent imperial garden grounds. Eric reflects on the time that has passed between late winter and the arrival of full spring. Eric watches a phantom memory of his childhood self-play. A memory shows younger versions of Eric and Elisha enjoying a quiet moment reading in the garden. Elegant black heels click rhythmically against the polished stone floor. A mysterious woman interrupts the emperor's thoughts to formally greet the ruler of Cardion. The dark-haired woman introduces herself as Primavera Nox, the second princess of the neighboring kingdom. Eric questions why the princess is wandering the main palace corridor instead of the conference hall. Primavera smiles as she claims she took the wrong path while trying to familiarize herself with the palace. The dark-haired emperor looks at her with a cold and skeptical expression. Eric watches the princess with a cold and calculating gaze. Narrative text describes Primavera's reputation as a quiet person who rarely engages in external activities. The princess's ornate torii glimmers as she maintains her composure. Primavera asks the emperor if she might make a request without being considered rude. The princess asks if his majesty would be willing to personally guide her through the grounds. Eric leans in close, coldly reminding Primavera that there are many prying eyes within the imperial palace. Primavera smirks as she acknowledges that rumors tend to spread very quickly in such an environment. The princess gestures toward the emperor, stating that everyone already knows the true purpose of her visit. She suggests that they should seek a political advantage now that Cardion's archmage has disappeared. Eric recalls the image of Elisha as the narrative notes the power vacuum created by her absence. The emperor acknowledges that other nations see the missing archmage as a gap in his nation's strength. Eric stands near the princess, privately acknowledging his own reputation as an unreliable and untested emperor. The emperor aggressively grabs Primavera's chin, asking if his perceived unreliability is why she treats him so casually. Eric states he will overlook her rudeness today since they are currently equals within the allied delegation. The dark-haired man turns and walks away, leaving the princess standing alone in the hallway. The emperor stands amidst dark roses with a frigid expression. A cold warning echoes as the dark-haired emperor walks away. The princess watches the emperor leave with a silent, calculating expression. An off-screen voice calls out for the emperor's immediate attesee. Eric stops as Mullen approaches him with an expression of urgency. Mullen reports that an investigation into Dexion yielded some concerning news. Mullen explains that a carriage was recently attacked by several monsters. The dark-haired emperor reacts with shock to the grim report. Eric questions the possibility of monsters appearing suddenly within his borders. The scene shifts to Elisha as she discusses the recent sightings. Elisha learns that Cardion is being blamed for the monster incident. The white-haired girl decides a swift search is required to avoid suspicion. Elisha asks the blonde knight Renard if he remembers their promise.
Elisha and Renard discuss the mission within the Grand Imperial Archive. Renard suggests that right now is the perfect time to act.
The blonde knight explains the situation and asks for Elisha's assistance. Renard smiles confidently while activating a magical device in his hand. The archmage prepares to cast magic as her white hair glows.
Chibi versions of the pair bicker about Cardion's precarious safety status.
Renard tells Elisha he will head out first to prepare things.
The blonde knight tells Elisha to wait an hour before leaving. Renard shouts a final reminder for Elisha to wear a robe. Elisha grips the dark fabric, focusing her mind on the pines. The white-haired girl teleports across the sky toward the attack site.
Elisha arrives at her destination and detects very faint monster magic.
The archmage spots the wreckage of the carriage from high above. Elisha lands in the field and begins her investigation on foot.
The girl stops abruptly as she finds blood and debris nearby.
Elisha identifies several sets of large hide footprints on the ground. Elisha reflects on her past extermination efforts versus the current sightings. The archmage suspects that a mysterious person is summoning these monsters. A sudden ripple of magical energy passes through the air nearby. Elisha confirms her theory about the monsters hiding in the area.
The scene shifts to a silent clearing at the edge of the forest.
Elisha prepares a magic circle to expose the artificial summoning source. The girl's eye widens as she detects a sudden nearby disturbance. A sharp flash of energy signals a sudden magical event nearby. An explosion erupts in the distance, catching Elisha's immediate attention. Elisha realizes that a familiar voice is echoing from the site. The archmage recognizes the voice as belonging to Renard. A bright moon hangs over the silent and dark landscape.
Small objects sink slowly through the dark and silent pool.
Renard looks around, visibly overwhelmed by the skill of the attack. A swarm of massive wolves with glowing eyes surrounds the knight. Renard recalls Elisha's earlier warning regarding the monster summoning. The blonde knight accepts that the summoning is indeed real. Soldiers urgently call out to their captain amidst the monster swarm. A soldier explains that their low mana sensitivity makes combat difficult. Renard clenches his jaw, frustrated by their inability to fight back. The knight realizes they have no choice but to take action.
Renard orders his troops to immediately deploy their teleportation magic.
Renard orders his subordinates to evacuate immediately so Elisha can safely arrive. The armored soldiers look at their captain with tearful eyes and deep admiration. Renard scolds his departing men for being dramatic as they teleport away. A sudden, powerful magical explosion sends the blonde knight flying backward. Renard grunts in pain as he hits the ground with a heavy thud. The knight looks up in awe as Elisha arrives amidst a celestial glow. A panicked voice calls out to the white-haired girl. Renard confirms that the monster attack was indeed an intentional summoning. Elisha questions the attacker's motives while Renard suggests they were aiming for the palace. The white-haired girl focuses on eliminating the wolves and capturing the summoner.
Elisha reflects silently on the gravity of the situation unfolding before them.
Elisha instructs a shocked Renard to handle half of the slower monsters. The girl prepares to move as the blonde knight tells her to wait. Renard offers a determined smile as he prepares for the upcoming battle. The knight decides to use this opportunity to prove his individual strength. Renard activates his magic, eager to show Eric he can handle the hides alone. Elisha observes Renard, noting his tactical limitations with large-scale attack spells. A massive pillar of fire erupts as the battle against the wolves begins. Elisha prepares a subtle spell to end the fight without excessive destruction. The white-haired girl strikes a wolf precisely, targeting its internal mana core. Elisha destroys the hide's mana core with a focused burst of magical energy. The archmage lands gracefully while scouting for her next target. A cloaked man with red eyes suddenly appears and mockingly greets the girl. Elisha reacts with a sharp, wary glare at the unexpected intruder. The white-haired girl quickly generates a complex defensive magic circle. The mysterious man asks if she remembers their previous encounter during the incident. Elisha realizes the man intentionally lured her to this location. The red-eyed stranger smiles menacingly while recalling their shared past. A memory of a brown-haired man named Bernhardt flashes through Elisha's mind. The cloaked man expresses his amusement as Elisha realizes his true identity. Elisha's fury boils over as she identifies him as her past tormentor. The archmage and the summoner face off within a swirling vortex of fire. Intense heat radiates from the ground as the confrontation escalates. Elisha realizes this man is responsible for her exile from the palace. A shattered image of Bernhardt represents the tragedy that destroyed Elias' old life. Tears well in Elisha's eyes as she reflects on her lost connection with Eric. A memory of a peaceful palace life is consumed by the present flames. The cloaked man dismissively claims that she has misunderstood the past events. The stranger mocks Elisha's skill level, suggesting she lacks experience against true peers. He easily blocks Elisha's magical blast, critiquing her simple and predictable patterns. The red-eyed man vanishes into the darkness with a cryptic parting warning. Elisha stands alone in a crater of ice, looking utterly defeated and exhausted. Massive jagged ice spikes protrude from the ground where the battle took place. The white-haired girl stares blankly ahead, her heart heavy with renewed grief. Narrative text questions the chaotic nature of the events just witnessed. Renard rushes through the fields, desperately searching for Elisha after the exposure. The blonde knight watches in confusion as the monsters and magic vanish. Renard worries about the difficulty of explaining this incident to the emperor. A soft voice calls out a nickname in the quiet night air. Renard stops abruptly as he finally discovers Elisha standing amidst the ice. The white-haired girl turns her back to the blonde knight. Renard approaches Elisha, checking if she is unharmed after the spells. The blonde knight stops suddenly, wearing a look of sheer disbelief. Elisha stands amidst jagged ice as moonlight washes over the crater. The white-haired girl stares into the distance with a hollow, somber expression. Renard stammers as he struggles to process the girl's ethereal appearance. The blonde knight offers a robe to help the girl hide. Renard shields his eyes, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. The blonde knight blushes as he reflects on their long-standing relationship. Renard tries to convince himself his racing heart is merely fear. The blonde knight informs Elisha that he encountered the monster summoner. Renard reacts with shock as Elisha reveals the attacker evaded her. The knight questions how someone could possibly dodge her lightning-fast magic. Elisha ponders the summoner's true motives while recalling the recent encounter. A memory shows the cloaked man claiming he intentionally discovered her. The red-eyed man's menacing smile haunts Elisha as she recalls him. Narrative text questions if the entire incident was a personal trap. Elisha dismisses the theory, noting the attacker didn't press his advantage. The white-haired girl watches the summoner stand amidst a sea of flames. Elisha realizes the man's true aim was a much larger target.
A vision shows the kingdom of Cardion consumed by a massive inferno.
Renard grips the girl's sleeve, looking at her with intense determination.
The blonde knight vows to stay by her side, shocking Elisha.
The white-haired girl begins to offer a soft, hesitant explanation.
Elisha requests formal permission to venture out into the world. Leaves rustle as a report mentions new personnel heading to Cardion.
Eric and Renard meet in the palace to discuss the survivors. The blonde knight rubs his face, exhausted by the night's events. Renard expresses surprise that his retreating men actually saved people. The knight laments his lack of rest since returning to the palace.
A tired Renard desperately wishes for a magical drink to stay awake.
Eric mentions an interesting report while Renard asks for more details. Elemental magic clashes violently across the plains in a distant vision.
The Emperor suggests the scale of magic indicates multiple attackers were present.
Eric asks for the identity of the person who accompanied Renard. Renard trembles under the weight of the Emperor's pointed questioning. The knight's hand shakes as he struggles to maintain his composure. Renard panics as he realizes every possible answer leads to death.
Eric leans back, noting the knight's obvious hesitation to speak.
Renard's mouth hangs open as he prepares to shout his excuse. The knight claims the Emperor wouldn't recognize an expert of that level. Renard explains the person is a complete outsider to the Imperial Palace. A small, knowing smirk plays on the dark-haired Emperor's lips. Eric accepts the explanation for now, while Renard feels immense relief. The Emperor's sudden movement catches the exhausted knight off guard. A blunt command echoes, ordering Renard to bring the stranger forth. Eric offers a predatory smile as he sets his next trap. The Emperor's dark eye narrows as he focuses on his goal. Renard hides his face in his hands while cursing Eric's name. The blonde knight rants about the Emperor's personality to a silent Elisha.
Elisha suggests Renard is being too critical of Eric's behavior.
Renard questions if Elisha understands the danger of their current predicament. Renard warns that Eric is pressuring him to reveal Elisha's location. Renard reacts in shock to Elisha's unexpected decision regarding her return. Elisha activates a magic circle to unveil her secret project. Radiant magical energy begins to transform Elisha's physical features. Elisha's hair turns bright red as the complex spell takes effect. Renard watches in awe as Elisha completes her dramatic transformation. A red-haired version of Elisha emerges from the fading magical aura. A brief pause follows the revelation of Elisha's new form. Morning light illuminates the palace as a new day begins. Renard instructs the disguised girl to maintain a constant, convincing smile. The knight notes that her new persona must appear lighthearted. Elisha stands elegantly in her red hair disguised within the palace. Renard trembles with anxiety, pleading with the girl to remain cautious. The red-haired girl listens to Renard with a skeptical expression. She questions Renard's anxiety given the perfection of her disguise. Renard remains deeply unsettled by the risks they are taking. Renard warns the girl to limit her speech during the meeting. The knight explains that her unique speech habits could expose her. Renard observes that deeply ingrained habits are difficult to suppress. The knight fears her casual tone will give her away to Eric. Renard continues to issue strict behavioral bans for her safety. Renard frantically stresses the importance of staying in character. The red-haired girl looks pensive as they approach their destination.
Elisha acknowledges the logic behind Renard's intense overcaution.
Elisha wagers that Eric's disdain for her will cloud his judgment. The narrative confirms the unprecedented complexity of Elisha's transformation magic. Renard follows the girl through the hallway, heart racing with worry. The girl formally adopts the new identity of Lucy Forte.
Lucy Forte prepares herself as they arrive at the Emperor's door.
The red-haired girl offers a polite, rehearsed smile to Reinhardt. Eric questions the identity of the person Renard has brought forth. Renard's sweat drops as Eric scrutinizes the red-haired girl's eyes. Lucy Forte stands before the Emperor, maintaining her graceful composure.
Eric stares intently at the mysterious girl introduced as Lucy. The Emperor questions the undocumented sponsorship involving a man named Dante. Renard struggles to find a believable response to Eric's inquiry. Renard claims he sponsored Lucy secretly to avoid palace recruitment.
The knight panics as Eric remains skeptical of his explanation.
Eric's terrifying aura looms over the conversation, leaving Renard distraught. Renard feels hopelessly trapped between two equally deadly choices. Renard resigns himself to fate as Eric prepares his judgment.
Eric unexpectedly offers Lucy Forte a position within the palace.
Renard is completely stunned by the Emperor's sudden recruitment offer. Eric decides to skip standard procedures and hire Lucy immediately. Lucy Forte remains calm while contemplating the Emperor's strange behavior. The girl formally accepts the position as the deal is sealed. Eric observes his new employee with a calculating, mysterious gaze. Lucy Forte offers a radiant, triumphant smile amidst blooming flowers. Lucy Forte and Eric sit opposite each other in a glittering void. The Emperor says he will be expecting great things from her. Renard asks why Eric is not going to verify anything further. Eric jokes that verifying more would blow away half the palace. The Emperor offers to demonstrate the girl's power on a smaller scale. A thought bubble notes the red-haired girl seems quite confident. Eric tells Renard he relies on him a great deal. The Emperor smiles, leaving all matters regarding Lucy to the knight. Eric tells Renard that he is counting on him this time. Bright sunlight shines over the towers of the Grand Imperial Palace. A quiet hallway corner is illuminated by soft morning light. Renard rants about how his own conscience is currently killing him. Lucy Forte finds the Emperor's sudden words and behavior quite surprising. Renard snaps that calling it surprising is rude and lacks conscience. Lucy Forte wonders if Renard secretly hoped Eric would find her out. Renard mentions that Eric offered paid leave as a mission reward. The blonde knight looks away with a look of deep hesitation. A thought bubble notes that his life isn't so bad currently. Renard admits he has been less busy since she started helping. Lucy Forte tells him to relax while she handles the Emperor. Renard smiles and claims to truly be on her side now. A close-up of Lucy Forte's decorated shoes as she agrees. Renard tells her not to walk ahead since she knows the way. Rows of desks and bookshelves fill the quiet Imperial library. A hand reaches out to touch an ornate, blue-covered book. Young Eric asks if the library truly had a book like this. Young Elisha explains the librarian lent her the popular book. Eric notes the lack of a seal suggested as personal. The silver-haired girl asks the boy what the book is about. Eric summarizes a story about a human girl and ageless man. Elisha immediately reveals that the girl dies at the very end. Eric panics, asking why she skipped straight to the ending. Young Elisha looks ahead with a serene and thoughtful expression. The young prince stares at the book, thinking it's magic. Narrative text claims recognizing her despite the change makes no sense. A hand rests firmly on the decorative cover of the book. Text recalls a father's lesson that absolutely nothing is impossible. Young Eric gazes at Elisha amidst a backdrop of blooming flowers. Elisha asks the prince if he could recognize her like the book. Eric watches the silver-haired girl walk away into the bright light. A thought bubble confirms he would recognize her if it were her. Adult Eric sits alone in his dark and ornate private chambers. The Emperor looks down with a somber and focused expression. Eric recalls Lucy Forte standing before him earlier that day. Narrative text notes her appearance is completely different from Elisha. Eric thinks there is no way he wouldn't recognize her. Elisha's past and present forms overlap amidst a flurry of flowers. The Emperor notes that now that she has returned, everything is set. Eric looks ahead with a dark, intense, and predatory gaze. The Emperor silently vows that he will never let her go. Eric experiences a soft dream of a blue-haired girl. Beautiful light blue flowers bloom in the soft morning way. An empty palace always stands silent in the early morning. Lucy requests an assignment far from Eric to maintain her cover. Renard agrees to hide her from the Emperor's direct sight. Lucy demands a location, allowing her to assist Renard quickly. Renard confirms he is finalizing her assignment to a specific department. The blonde knight leads Lucy toward her new workplace immediately. Lucy follows with growing suspicion about her final destination. They arrive at a set of grand ornate palace doors. A gloved hand reaches out to offer a formal greeting. Gabriel Duncan introduces himself as the vice captain of the Magic Knights. A complex magical circle represents the prestigious First Magic Knights. The order operates under the direct command of Captain Dante Renard. Elite mages are recruited strictly based on their superior magical talent. Rumors suggest Dante personally recruited the current vice captain for the order. Lucy accepts the handshake, officially joining the elite magic squad. Gabriel offers a friendly nickname to make the rookie feel welcome. Lucy realizes Renard surrounds himself with people as energetic as him. The noisy mages overwhelm Lucy with their intense and loud enthusiasm. Gabriel explains that her direct assignment as a rookie is unprecedented. The vice captain reassures Lucy that her skills speak for themselves. Gabriel notes the Emperor personally summoned her for this specific role. Gabriel reveals he recognized her power from the Shillan Plains battle. He describes her mana manipulation as reaching the highest possible tier. Gabriel realizes Lucy was the robed stranger on the battlefield. The vice captain praises her performance, noting its impact on the order. Renard bursts into the room, urgently calling out for Lucy.
The captain panics upon seeing the vice captain talking to her. Renard returns early from his report to check on the Ricky. The night captain asks Lucy about her first impressions of work.
Renard checks if she understood Gabriel's orientation for new recruits.
The mage is watching confusion as Renard displays uncharacteristic nervousness.
Gabriel jokingly points out he hasn't even started the tour yet.
A blur of movement occurs as another knight approaches. A red-haired knight playfully grabs Lucy, greeting the new recruit.
Renard reacts with shock as the knight ignores formal palace etiquette.
The captain orders the knight to release the rookie immediately.
The boisterous knight teases Renard for being overprotective of Lucy.
Renard aggressively shoos the annoying knight away from the girl.
Lucy looks utterly frustrated by the rowdy behavior of her colleagues.
The knight apologizes, explaining his excitement at no longer being the rookie.
Sunlight reflects off the white spires of the imperial palace.
3 days pass while Elisha successfully maintains her disguise as Lucy.
Lucy works diligently in the library alongside her fellow mages.
The red-haired girl focuses intensely on her research and duties.
Other knights find Lucy's serious demeanor quite intimidating and difficult.
The mages observe that even Renard seems to fear her authority.
Lucy radiates a natural aura of authority and long-term experience.
The mages joke that Lucy is more qualified to lead than Renard.
The black-haired mage asks Gabriel if he saw a woman at Sheelan Plains. Gabriel claims Lady Elisha's inimitable magic reached a scale and speed beyond comparison.
A close-up reveals the black-haired girl looking utterly stunned.
Gabriel apologizes to his colleagues for accidentally mentioning a forbidden name. A gloved hand rhythmically taps against the surface of a book.
The purple-haired mage smiles, noting their new colleague seems like a good person.
Gabriel agrees that the rookie is extremely diligent and excels at her job. The mages observe that the newcomer remains mysterious and never shares personal details.
The 3 mages react with comical surprise as they are interrupted.
The brown-haired vice commander warns the mages against gossiping behind someone's back.
The panicking mages try to explain themselves while the vice commander questions their intent.
The vice commander orders the group to focus on their duties instead of finding fault.
A pair of white-gloved hands clap together to signal a transition.
The vice commander uses magic to levitate books while the mages watch in shock. Golden towers of the imperial palace rise under a bright, clear sky.
Renard rests his head on a pile of books, appearing completely exhausted.
From above, the red-haired girl approaches Renard, who complains about wanting to work. Renard warns that complaining so openly will influence the behavior of his subordinates. Lucy Forte notes that the knights are already following his lead in avoiding work.
The red-haired girl presses a book against the blonde knight's head.
Renard denies responsibility while noticing a book titled Mysterious Human Psychology.
A purple-haired knight delivers a massive stack of books to the exhausted commander.
Lucy Forte asks about Sir Cassis while Renard dismisses the matter entirely. Renard questions why Lucy used a strange psychology book as an excuse to visit.
The red-haired girl prepares to answer, her expression becoming more serious.
Lucy Forte asks if the commander will personally handle the summit's VIP assignments.
The Emperor suddenly enters the room, startling both Renard and the red-haired girl.
A decorative frame surrounds the name of the Emperor, Eric.
Eric stands majestically in his red uniform, asking why they look so surprised.
Renard forces a nervous smile while sweating and denying his obvious shock. Renard asks what brought the Emperor here, and Eric claims business was nearby.
Chibi Eric explains he came to pick up Renard for their scheduled lunch.
Renard suspects Eric only came to ensure he wouldn't run away from the meal. The Emperor turns to Lucy and asks why she's inquiring about VIP assignments.
Lucy Forte claims she was just curious while secretly harboring many political motivations.
Narrative text describes the fragile nature of alliance treaties bound only by individual interests. Internal thoughts suggest that the young Green Emperor's ascent makes Cardion vulnerable.
Lucy Forte considers participating in the summit to protect Eric from potential harm.
The girl reminds herself that her new identity must remain entirely unrelated to politics. A close-up shows Eric's mouth as he begins to speak to the Go. Lucy Forte gazes ahead with a quiet and observant expression. A grand chandelier illuminates the luxurious interior of the imperial dining hall. A fork pierces a piece of steak as Eric's full name is mentioned. Renard eats suspiciously, wondering if the Emperor has ever initiated lunch before. The 3 sit at a long table while Renard wonders what Eric is plotting.
Eric taps his fork against his plate, agreeing that the food is good.
Renard chokes as Eric suggests the 3 of them should have lunch together often. The blonde knight reacts with shock while Lucy Forte watches the scene unfold.
The red-haired girl politely thanks the Emperor but prepares to decline his offer.
Lucy Forte argues that frequent private meals could be misconstrued as preferential cheering. The Emperor smiles slightly as he agrees with the red-haired girl's assessment. Eric informs Lucy Forte that he is intentionally giving her special treatment. Lucy Forte reacts with a look of pure shock and wide-eyed realization. A narrative thought suggests the girl actually deserves even better treatment than this.
Eric decides to moderate his behavior while anticipating the upcoming Allied Nations Summit.
Lucy Forte remains at the dining table, appearing deep in quiet contemplation. Renard is completely overwhelmed by the situation and questions the Emperor's odd behavior. Swirling dark patterns represent the blonde knight's intense confusion regarding the current events. Whispers and murmurs begin to spread through the palace as the day progresses.
Palace workers carry heavy supplies while the sound of gossip echoes around them. A maid walks past the courtyard where hush rumors continue to travel quickly. Young Eric informs a blue-haired girl that the nation's conference is being held. The young prince questions why the girl would be surprised by his knowledge. Eric declares his plan to attend the upcoming conference despite his youth. The girl reminds the prince he has spent all his time studying magic. Chibi Eric crossly reminds the blue-haired girl that they are the same age. The girl questions if the prince is truly ready to attend such an event. Eric recalls his father's instruction to attend the conference for his future experience. The prince explains his intent is simply to observe the proceedings from it. Young Eric casually mentions they will see each other at the conference hall. The blue-haired girl is stunned and asks why she would be present there. Eric turns back to ask if their father also invited her to go. The girl explains she intended to go as an assistant to Lord Renard. Adult Eric reflects on his childhood habit of obsessively trying to repay debts. Young Elisha tells the prince she dislikes him acting purely out of duty. The girl asks if the prince hates her efforts to lighten his burdens. A close-up shows young Eric bluntly confirming that he does indeed hate it. Young Elisha looks completely heartbroken and stunned by the prince's cold response. The blue-haired girl offers a sad, resigned smile as dark lily petals fall. Adult Lucy lies in bed, thinking about how Eric's cold nature has changed. Lucy reflects on Eric's current desire for her presence and feels a sting. The moon shines through dark tree branches during a night of restless thoughts. A brown-haired woman in a purple cloak approaches Lucy the following morning. The woman notes Lucy's exhausted appearance and asks if she had a nightmare. Lucy admits her lack of sleep was due to having many troubling thoughts. The colleague suggests Lucy rest in the break room's high-quality massage chairs. Ornate red heels click against the carpet as a noblewoman walks through the hall. The brown-haired woman stops Lucy to confirm her identity as the new recruit. A formal greeting is extended to the visiting second princess of the kingdom. Primavera Knox introduces herself while standing elegantly amidst a backdrop of red flowers. Lucy bows as she realizes this princess is a candidate for next empress. Lucy informs the visitor that the barracks area is restricted to authorized personnel. The princess explains she has been waiting in the corridor for that exact reason. Primavera Knox maintains a graceful pose while smiling at the two magic knights. Lucy's companion is shocked that the princess has already heard the palace rumors. The princess mentions the gossip about Lucy's lunch and her role as an aide. Lucy's colleague panics while Lucy questions the princess's sudden interest in her. Lucy expresses her confusion regarding the visit while the princess laughs softly. Primavera Knox mentions she was searching for a specific delegation at the Plains. The princess highlights the emperor's unprecedented favoritism and personal recruitment of the rookie. Primavera Knox mentions the rumors regarding the emperor's favor toward Lucy. The princess speculates if mages are the emperor's specific romantic type. Lucy Forte maintains a stoic and serious expression during the conversation. Lucy questions the princess's motives regarding her relationship with the emperor. Primavera Knox clarifies that her presence isn't actually due to his majesty. The noblewoman expresses a personal curiosity regarding Lucy Forte's true identity. Primavera Knox laments that Lucy cannot serve as her personal escort. An attendant interrupts the conversation, calling out to the visiting princess. Primavera Knox realizes how late it is while Lucy and her colleague watch. The princess expects to see Lucy again at the upcoming conference. Primavera Knox laughs as she walks away through the palace hall. Golden light reflects off the spires and banners of the palace. Lucy Forte admits to herself that something about the princess is bothersome. The red-haired girl watches the princess depart down the long hallway. Lucy reflects that while the princess seemed curious, she remains uneasy. The girl tries to clear her mind and stop overthinking things. Lucy Forte suddenly stops walking as someone catches her full attention. A man in a grand red cloak walks through the imperial hallway. The emperor appears with a majestic aura in the sunlit hallway. Lucy Forte and the emperor face each other in the palace corridor.